So I have this confession. I like trees. I've always liked trees. There's just something about them, how they just stand there in their greatness. They're still, they're patient. They don't try to prove anything. And yet they just grow. And I hate living in a place that only offers up two half-hearted varieties. You got your palm and you got your eucalyptus. And as much as I hate to admit it, I do miss the Midwest. I miss driving down streets lined with maples and oaks, trees that don't just stand but change. The streets are painted with hundreds of shades of green in the spring, bursting into fire in the fall, and the trees remind you that time is passing, and somehow that's okay and even beautiful. I recently shared a story about trees with my daughter Lucy that I wanted to share with you too. This story is not about romantic nostalgia about trees, but more about how trees find their strength. So back in the 80s, there were some scientists who built this gigantic glass bubble in the Arizona desert called Biosphere 2. They created this perfect little world, sealed off, controlled, and they wanted to see how life could thrive if you took away all the chaos and you could control everything. No storms, no pests, no pollution, just the good stuff. Sun, water, soil. And the trees, they grew fast, lush, beautiful. But something happened. They started falling over. One by one, the trunks snapped. Branches broke. They couldn't stand under their own weight. Turns out they were missing something. What they were missing was wind. In the wild, trees, in fact, need the wind. That resistance forces them to grow deeper roots, thicker bark, and it's what makes them strong. Without it, they're weak, and they're fragile. They're pretty, but they're temporary. And that's the part that I couldn't shake. Because I think about us, the ones out here trying to create, trying to survive, trying to hold it together. And I wonder, maybe the hard stuff isn't the problem. Maybe it's what's shaping us. Maybe it's not about having the perfect environment. Maybe it's about learning to stand anyway. This episode is not about chasing greatness. It's not about becoming prolific, burning your ships, or proving anything. It's about the wind and what it means to still be standing in it. This is a Terrible Photographers podcast. My name is Patrick Four, and today's episode is called Still Here. Let's get real for a moment, shall we? Not everyone listening to this podcast wants to be the next Annie Leibovitz or Stephen McCurry or Andre Wagner or whoever's trending on Instagram or YouTube this week. Some of you, I know, are just trying to make rent. You want to get through a family session without your gear breaking. You want to edit after the kids go to bed and still get some sleep. You want to feel something when you shoot, even if it's just for a minute. You're not chasing a book deal like me or a gallery show. What you're chasing is time and energy and sanity. And that's valid. I want to tell you about a story about Andy Frame. Andy Frame in 2008, when the recession hit, Andy was laid off from his corporate job after 20 years of climbing the ladder. With a growing family, a heavy mortgage, bleak employment prospects, he turned to photography. Not as some grand artistic statement, but simply as a way to survive. Within 5 years, though, Andy went from being a complete photography unknown to running one of the most successful commercial photography operations in the business. He's shot Catwalk, the largest privately owned yacht in the United States. He's flown internationally on assignment. His images appear everywhere from Costco displays to Architectural Digest. Andy's story is not about gear or technique. It's about grit. Starting from necessity, driven by the responsibility to provide for his family, he did what it took to make it work. He showed up day after day, pushed through the uncertainty, and in that process, discovered an incredible skill set that brought him remarkable success. When faced setbacks, he simply fought another day. About a month ago, I lost a client. Not because I messed up, but because when the tariffs hit, his cost of doing business went up 40% overnight. And just like that, any future opportunity with this client was gone. His marketing budget was evaporated. And I think that we're all going to have stories like that this year. It's not about winning every battle. It's about winning the war. There will be days when you're tired, when you just want to say fuck it and throw in the towel, but you need to press on. If not for others in your life, you need to do it for yourself. And if you've been feeling stuck, maybe even like you're falling behind other photographers, behind your own goals, behind where you thought you would be by now, let me say this. You're not stuck because you're lazy. You're not falling behind because you're tired, uninspired, or just numb. The reality is that you're living in a world that doesn't exactly roll out the red carpet for creativity. A world that rewards hustle over honesty, speed over stillness, and output over depth. And if you're still showing up at all, even if it's reaching out to that potential client that you've been thinking about, even if it's posting a piece of work that you're proud of on Instagram, even though part of you doubts anyone will care, even if it's scheduling a test shoot that you could easily blow off, but something in you won't let you. That means something. That's not nothing. That's you staying connected to the work, even if it's just by a thread. That's not you failing. That's you holding on. And there's nothing small about that. There's this study from the American Psychological Association that shows people who maintain even minimal creative activity during stressful life events experience better emotional regulation and lower cortisol levels. It's not about being prolific. It's about staying connected, even a little, even in the mess. That's not a side note. That's the whole goddamn story. If I can be honest for a moment, I'm kind of in a gray season. This season is where I'm really not making anything worth showing. No personal works, no test shoots, just basically jobs, edits, invoices, and filling my days with busy work and podcasts. And it's hard not to think that maybe I don't have it anymore. That whatever spark I had has gone out. That maybe people don't care either. Like no one is paying attention. But here's what I've learned, and here's what I know. Creativity has seasons. Sometimes you're coasting at a good speed. Everything clicks. The light is good. The work flows. Life seems up. Flowers are blooming. And sometimes you're in the winter and it's dormant. It's quiet. It's kind of boring. But just because nothing's blooming and you don't see any growth doesn't mean nothing is alive. Trees survive winter underground. Roots, they grow in silence. Strength builds in places no one sees. And you might just be in one of those seasons. You're not broken. You're not behind. Just resting. You're waiting. There's this great story about Gregory Heisler. If you don't know who he is, you've probably seen his work. He shot more than 70 Time magazine covers. Everyone from Muhammad Ali to Bruce Springsteen to Hillary Clinton. In the early 90s, Heisler photographed President George H.W. Bush for Time magazine. For the shoot, Heisler used a technically challenging in-camera double exposure technique. He wanted to show the two George Bushes, showing both the statesman and the politician in one single frame. It was really well done. It was pretty incredible even. The White House, though, did not feel the same way. They were not informed about this approach. And when the cover was published, his White House photographer privileges were immediately revoked. And this could have been a career-ending disaster. Instead, it just became one chapter in a long and distinguished career. Heisler kept working and growing and eventually became a distinguished professor of photography, teaching a new generation about art and the craft. For him, this firing just became another story along his journey. As Heisler himself said, photography is 1% inspiration and 99% moving furniture. In the season when nothing seems to be working, when doors are closing rather than opening, those aren't detours from your path. That is the path. What matters isn't whether you've had setbacks or made mistakes. What matters is that you've learned from them. You've adapted and you've kept going. Heisler's career was not defined by losing his White House press credentials, but by what he did afterwards, continuing to create powerful images to connect with viewers on a human level. One of my favorite authors, Elizabeth Gilbert, once said, "I will always be safe from the random hurricanes of outcomes as long as I never forget where I rightfully live. I live in that delightful land. This is what I love, and this is where I find my joy." Maybe you're there now. Maybe you're in that hurricane. Maybe your roots are growing in quiet. Here's what we forget sometimes. Creativity isn't just about what you make. It's about how you live. Sometimes the bravest, most creative thing that you can do is stay. Stay in the work. Stay in the tension. Stay in the part where nothing's certain, but something in you won't quit. You don't have to be prolific right now. You don't have to be a full-time all-in, burning your ships at the shore committed. You just have to protect a little piece of yourself, that part that still sees the world a certain way. That's enough. Toni Morrison, the Nobel Prize-winning author who wrote Beloved, Song of Solomon, once said, "At some point in life, the world's beauty becomes enough. You don't need to photograph, paint, or even remember it. It is enough." She wasn't a photographer, but she understood something that hits close to home. Not everything beautiful needs to be captured. Not every moment demands a lens or a frame. Sometimes just witnessing is enough. Sometimes just being is enough. And maybe, just maybe, your presence, your persistence, your still here-ness is enough too. You are just as valuable a photographer, whether you are getting paid or not, whether you are producing or not. You are still a valuable human being, whether you're making money or not. You just being here, continuing to fight another day. That's what counts. That's what matters. So this podcast came from a book called Lessons from a Terrible Photographer. But if you've listened to the past few episodes, maybe you've started to figure this out, that it's not just about photography. It's about what it means to want something more and not always know how to get there. It's about being alive and creative and scared and trying anyway. Photography here is just the metaphor. The real story is about the space between survival and self-expression. The space when you're holding on to part of you that still believes in more than bills and more than metrics, more than just getting by. If that's where you are, I see you. And no, I don't have the answers, but I'm still here too. This week, I want you to write something down. Not why you started, not what you post on Instagram, not your brand story, whatever that means. Write down what's keeping you here, what's stopping you from quitting, what's still worth noticing. Keep it somewhere where you can see it. Because when things get heavy, and they will, that reason, that's your anchor. You're not falling behind. You're growing roots. I'll see you in a couple days. Until then, stay human, stay weird, stay curious, and yeah, stay terrible.